come up with like a dramatic pose now when I introduce myself. All right. Hello and welcome everybody to episode 74 of Comic DNA. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube or listening to it on YouTube, you might notice there's something slightly different than previous episodes. And that is my good friend Alex Harner and I have decided to go visual. We got $20 webcams, and now we're gonna do our comic conversations, but we're gonna have video to them. And hopefully, what this means is that number one, it'll be a little bit more interesting because you'll get to almost like you're interacting with us. You know, you can watch our facial expressions or our awkward tics or our nervous finger motions whenever we're trying to come up with ideas.
I think the, 3 listeners in the past missed out on all of our exciting hand motions. So
I think Jordan, my friend Jordan Kroger, is missing out. You know, he's probably just been listening to us while he draws, and he didn't realize that he could be watching us while he draws. I don't know how that works. Does that work? You're an artist, Alex.
You'd have to rig up something special. But, good luck to him.
Yeah. So for this episode, we are going to do I would say an epilogue of the past year and a half that we've been discussing the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby X-Men comics.
Has it been that long?
I think so. It's probably started in 2017, and here we are in almost May of 2018. So
yeah. It took us a while.
It wasn't intended to be that long,
Right.
It really wasn't, but
I guess sometimes it felt long.
It did, and I think that's one thing that we're going to have to talk about. But apart from being an epilogue, we'll just kind of talk about our final thoughts, put this X-Men debacle behind us. We're also going to kind of talk about what the future may hold for this podcast, because I do want to keep doing episodes. I like reading comics. I like talking about comics, and I like doing it with my good friend Alex, who, I don't want to sound weird, but Alex might be the only person out there that gets me when talking about comics.
You have a special bond.
Yes.
Also, I feel like you've introduced me twice now, but I don't know if you said your name. I like doing this show with my good friend Aaron. Leading this charge.
The irony is that the whole reason I'm doing this is for that beautiful buzzword branding that everybody uses. If you're a creator or an artist or a writer, everything's about branding, and you got to do stuff to advertise and put yourself out there. And so I sort of half-assedly do that by doing this podcast and putting myself out there, but then not saying my name because, whatever, I'm not important.
You're going to brand, you got to brand.
I do that. I do that at comic conventions. I go and we'll meet professional comic artists and tell them that I'm a big fan of theirs, and I won't introduce myself and tell them who I am. I did that to Brian Wood several years ago at C2E2. We were at a table, actually next to each other. Not next to each other, there was one table between us. So we kept seeing each other all day, and finally at one point I was walking out, from behind the tables, and he was sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, Brian, by the way, I'm a big fan of your work. I really, talked about it." And he goes, "Oh, thank you." And then I walked off, and I was I didn't even tell him my name. I probably looked like a yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was I looked like a weirdo, not an actual human being who knows how to talk to people and introduce himself like a regular person.
I think it was a power move.
Yeah, it's totally, yeah.
Keep him on edge.
Yeah. Who is that guy? Should I know him? I guess I should. He didn't introduce himself. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going with that from now on.
All right.
Just like the bad lighting in this room, so you can't really get a good feel of what I look like. Power move.
It's kind of a Wizard of Oz move.
Yes. Pay no attention to the man in the shadows.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a good amount of preamble for this episode. The other benefit of doing these live like this, the other intention, I should say, is that I really want to cut down on the editing after the fact. And because that takes a lot of time that I don't want to spend editing because I got other stuff to do. I do
comics to make.
I do try to write comic books every now and then.
Hmm.
So we're gonna really focus and keep on track here. So that being said, X-Men Epilogue. We read
Retrospective.
18 issues of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Right.
Went into it not expecting to read that many. I kind of
originally we thought we were going to do 12.
Yeah, I kind of failed.
Confused on our what issues were what.
Right. But so still, that being said, I'm glad we did read the issues beyond 12, as we would probably discuss, because apart from issue 1, those were actually the best issues, except for the ones that were the worst issues.
Right. Some incredible high points.
So let me ask you, Alex. Do you feel that now that you've sat down and read, these were issues that you had never read before, you were only not, I wouldn't even say marginally familiar with them. You just knew that it was a thing that existed, but other than that.
I think maybe I read issue 1 and came with an action figure or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Long ago. But yeah, that was a long time ago.
So in retrospect, do you feel that your time was wasted reading these issues? You feel like you could have spent this last year and a half reading better books, or just not even better books, just other books?
That's a complicated question. No, I don't think it was wasted in that we both really enjoy X-Men comics and
that's true.
Superhero comics and Marvel comics and DC comics and comics. And I think these are really important issues to the history of comics. So I'm glad I know more about them. And there were good issues that I'm very glad I read, and there were bad issues that at the very least I know why they were bad now. So I'm glad I read it for that reason.
Yeah,
I will say I have missed talking about graphic novels and other things on your on your podcast.
Well, the one thing that I think I kind of learned doing this was even in these issues that we didn't like and that we didn't have a lot to talk about, we still talked for an hour on each one.
We're wordy.
And I don't know if each issue really warranted that amount of discussion. You know what I mean?
In retrospect,
I think we could have. There was some key issues that did warrant the discussion. The first issue, certainly the Juggernaut 2-part story. There was a lot to talk about with that. I felt like that was a really full discussion. And even the Sentinel 3-issue story was a pretty full discussion. Yeah. And those all went well over an hour. I don't know, well over, but an hour and a half at least, I think. But yeah, some of those other issues where we were just we got nothing to say. It was okay, but whatever. How did we do that for an hour?
That's a good question. We talked about...
Well, I'll tell you how we did it, Alex. Going through it and editing this last episode that we hated probably more than anything, the last 2 issues. I actually clocked the time. We spent a half hour just doing the synopsis of the 2 issues.
We often said we were gonna go through this quickly, and then we never did.
And we never did. No, yeah, we really went through and gave a very pretty detailed synopsis, except maybe a few exceptions here and there. But
I wonder if it's because in the case of the graphic novels we've talked about, those were usually full, meaty works. There was a lot of depth to them, so there was a lot to talk about. With these are old comics. They're short comics.
Yeah.
They're not deep comics.
Right.
Maybe we were overcompensating. We were trying to create material. There wasn't actually that much there.
Well, that sounds like a good. That sounds like a good reason. That's maybe we'll go with that.
We're trying really hard to give a thorough critical take on something that just wasn't.
Really didn't need it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. I do like really. You and me both really like the X-Men, and I really do kind of like really breaking it down and really getting into deep X-Men talk. I do enjoy that, you know.
Next level X-Men.
Exactly. Yeah, the kind of talk that you can only have like it's not even scholarly anymore. It's just like
Speaking out.
yeah, exactly. It's like going into geek out territory, and it's that part of me. It makes me uncomfortable personally, but I can't help but go there with the X-Men.
And yet you put it on the internet.
I put it on the internet for all to see.
Sorry.
Yeah. So let me get your opinion on this. This is one thing that I did was I went through all our old episodes and I tallied up the scores that we gave each issue. All right. So first of all, because we are a real Mickey Mouse operation and we're kind of making it up as we go along, we didn't actually give a score to issue 2, the Vanisher issue. No,
I am embarrassed.
Right? I know. Yeah, because we just didn't do that. We just ended the episode. So in retrospect, now that you sort of have the full gamut of all these issues, and like, where do you think the Vanisher issue stacks up?
I remember that being a pretty mediocre issue, but
But coming at issue 2, I almost give it more of a pass than some of the later issues. I'm comfortable giving it the same score that we gave the Blob issue.
You think it was the same?
I think it was around the same. I don't know if I don't know. Like, do you think it was better or worse? I don't know if I could say, honestly.
I remember it being just kind of boring.
Boring, yeah.
Which is a problem, but the Blob issue had the whole like worst moment in X-Men comics ever.
That's true.
Professor X love declaration, and it also had the total like not really heroic at all character motivations of the X-Men.
That's right. That's right. Vanisher did it. The Vanisher issue did at least have like reasonable motivations and characterization. You know, Vanisher was just a criminal, like a bank robber, and the X-Men decided to stop him because he was a mutant. And I mean, it didn't
really go anywhere, but
yeah, it did end with Professor X wiping his memory and making him forget that he was a mutant. But that's not like particularly egregious in the way that Professor X pining after Jean Grey or
inviting someone to his home. And then forcing him to have his mind wiped.
Exactly. Yeah, it is actually a little different. So you know what? No, you're right. We can say it's slightly better than the Blob issue. Mm-hmm. We gave the Blob issue 1.5.
Yeah.
So Vanisher 2.
2. Okay.
2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just go down the list here. Tell you what we gave them all. So we gave the first issue with Magneto. That was a 4.5. Really strong issue. I still love it. Mm-hmm. Vanisher, as we just discussed, was a 2. The issue number 3 with the Blob was 1.5.
Okay.
And then issues 4 and 5, that was the return of Magneto with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We gave each of those issues a 3.5.
Okay.
The next issue was Namor with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That one got a 2.
Okay.
So Namor is the same as Vanisher.
Okay.
Sounds about right, honestly.
I think so.
I think the Namor one might be a little better. Was that?
Maybe Namor was a little bit more exciting, but
that's what I was going to say. But this is just the numbers. This is the math.
Okay.
So issue 7.
Continue.
Issue 7 with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and the Blob. Remember that issue?
Mm-hmm.
Also gave that one a 2.
Okay.
Issue 8 with Unis the Untouchable, 2.5.
Okay. Okay.
Issue 9 with the Avengers. That was a 3.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, even though it had like the worst ending.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, but the Avengers stuff was fun. I think that's what we're going with.
It injected a little energy into it when we were sort of like getting dulled out.
Really burned out by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Yeah. Issue 10 with Kazar, 3.
Okay.
Issue 11 with the Stranger, 0.5. It was a solid half. I can't even remember how it got the half. There had to be like one panel that warranted a half star.
Yeah.
Issues 12 and 13. That was the Juggernaut. That was a 4.
Yes. It was a 4. Okay.
Issues 14 through 16 was the Sentinels. That was also a 4.
Okay.
And then issues 17 and 18 was the return of Magneto with the Stranger. A half. Another half.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm not exactly a mathematician, but crunching those numbers, I think that puts it at an average score per issue, like at a 2.6.
Okay. Out of 5.
Out of 5.
All right.
I don't know how would you say that that's like a fair score for the entire run of 18 issues as a whole?
I think it's fair.
I actually kind of do.
Originally, we were kind of doing the scores off the cuff, and
we were making it up as we went along.
But no, I do think that's pretty fair because they were the first issue and the 2 long arc stories that were like strong, and then there were the Stranger issues that were like hard to read, and the Brotherhood of New Mutants issues that were quite stupid. And then everything else was kind of in the middle to bad.
Yeah.
And the Blob issue was terrible.
Oh,
so
the Blob issue.
2.6 might be high. I don't know.
Yeah. So here's my other question then. I know you've read these recently, and you probably haven't read some other X-Men issues in maybe a little while, but how do these compare to, say, the Scott Lobdell 90s era X-Men with Scott Lobdell and Jim Lee?
You're bringing the hard questions.
I mean, honestly, like when you really objectively look at it.
I haven't read those in a long time.
No counting the issues 1, 2, and 3 that were written by Chris Claremont. We're starting with issue 4, which I think was Omega Red.
Okay. Which were more or less written by Jim Lee.
And Scott Lobdell wrote the dialogue, which is comparable to the Jack Kirby Stan Lee situation, I think you could say.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've read those, but they're probably not better comics. I mean, nostalgia is going to win for me there because Jim Lee's art looks really cool.
It does. The way he draws Gambit, just it works.
Cool. They all look really cool. Gambit, who's the stupidest looking character,
I know,
actually looks cool when Jim Lee draws him.
Right.
Jack Kirby's a great artist too, but you're competing with like 8-year-old Alex here.
Right. Yeah. So. It's a tough competition. You never win when you compete against children because you either lose and it just is exactly.
Well, that's quite a question. How do you feel about that?
I guess it's not fair of me to ask you that question and to not have an answer myself. Well, I have read those issues, not recently, but maybe more recently than you. Mm-hmm. And they're not great. Like I remember reading them a lot. Like those were books that I had as a kid. That X-Men run specifically was huge. Mm-hmm. I love those Chris Claremont issues. Issues 1, 2, and 3 with Asteroid M and Magneto. Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I think fondly of the 90s, like the Jim Lee comics, those really are the only 3 issues that I think of. And you start going down the line, and by the time you're like issue 25, and that is that. Oh, I'm already. Is that the Fatal Attractions crossover? That's where Wolverine gets the adamantium ripped out.
You're making me look like a basic X-Men fan here.
Hologram cards on the cover.
By that point, they were well into crossover land.
Yeah.
Executioner's Song, what was that? That was like right around 14 or something.
I'll still defend Executioner's Song, though. I mean, yeah.
We screw it. We're going to dedicate the next year to the Executioner's Song.
Now we got to read all of the '90s X-Men comics to compare to Stan Lee
least
and
Executioner's.
at least Executioner's Son. Yeah, at least. It has like those, you know, I know those are some of my favorite Cable moments was in Executioner's Son, right? I mean, like, I know, and those aren't even Rob Liefeld, but, you know, Rob Liefeld was gone well before then, but,
Well, those are tapping into the tough guys fighting.
Yeah, the Bishop and Cable and Wolverine, like, yeah. So let's just talk about that now for the rest of this episode. We won't even talk about it. We'll just reminisce. You know, just remember that moment when,
So that's past. That's past the. I guess that was still Lobdell, actually.
Yeah, I believe he was still writing at that point.
Yeah, that's a hard comparison. I mean, there's a lot of just issues that were filler in that time. And there are a fair amount of issues in these Jack Kirby Stanley issues that are filler. So the takeaway might be that the X-Men have always had moments and then been overall pretty generic to subpar.
I think that's that's kind of my takeaway from it. Absolutely. Like, and maybe, just maybe, this might be a problem with serialized comics in general, particularly the superhero comics. So you have like the high points, you know, these little peaks where it's like perfect. Everything is perfect. And it's just
comes together.
It comes together in just the right way. And those are probably a lot rarer than you think. But when it does, that's all you think about.
Right.
And it makes the whole thing just worth it, you know?
Right.
Like it's all pretty mediocre, but that like 4-issue stretch makes it all worthwhile. You know, that makes the last 24 issues worth it, you know?
Especially if you read the comics as a kid, which we don't have the benefit of that with these original issues, but
yes,
you know, kids don't pick up every comic. They can't collect everything.
Right. So, not anymore.
Yeah, right. But if you get that one amazing issue where Wolverine fights Cable, or where you know the Sentinels are this big crazy threat, and it goes on for 3 consecutive issues, and you're really like on the edge of your seat, what's going to happen? Yeah, you might have garbage for the next year and a half, but that's what's going to stick in your memory.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I know I got to be honest. That's how I am with most of the X-Men. Like even the Claremont run, which I absolutely love. You know, it was real up and down, and it had spikes here and there, but the spikes are so good, you know. That's I don't know. I guess that's just being a comic book fan, you know, a traditional comic book fan, not one of these like new age cool guy comic book fans where you read graphic novels and everything is by
comic fans and that.
Yeah, exactly, or web comics.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on there. That the serialized nature of monthly comics for a very long time meant that you're getting a lot of stuff that's just being pushed out the door. But when you have high points, those high points, you love them, and they give you goodwill toward the comic. That's well past the balance of good versus bad comics.
well past. Yeah. I mean, just us talking about these issues that we just read. I mean, those 2 Juggernaut issues were, I think, incredible. Like, I really liked the story, and they seemed so out of place, even compared to all the other comics that at that time. That, you know, even the X-Men line, just the X-Men line, like they were really good. So I look back at those like really, really fondly. Not look back like as a kid reading them, but just, I mean, looking at that line.
3 months ago. Or...
Yeah, I look back, you know.
Sure.
I look back when I'm looking at like that era of the X-Men, and it's like, I can't just write it off as being like, it was all terrible until Chris Claremont came along and made it good. Because there were some issues there that were really, really good. They were really good. As we discussed in the podcast, you know, but I think that has value. Like, that means something, you know, that they were able to do something there, you know.
Yeah, I kind of want to like I want some pretty data visual representation of charts and graphs showing major titles and number of like critically appreciated issues versus number of other issues, and what
exactly
stands out is the highest. Like,
yeah. I used to talk about that a lot because that was always the thing. I always imagined that. I bet X-Men were probably pretty high throughout its long run. High as in like ratio of like critically acclaimed versus bottomed out garbage. And then there were lots of books that were able to kind of coast. Like the Fantastic Four was always that kind of a book for me. Like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's Fantastic Four, really high. And then even eventually John Byrne came in and kept it pretty high. And I feel like the whole line just coasted on that for decades. And it was all kind of after that.
Yeah. I feel like a good ratio number is going to be like 10% good.
Exactly, yeah.
Or like, tops out at 17% quality issues versus garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's probably
good long-running series.
Exactly, yeah. That would be an interesting those would be some interesting hard numbers to see, but that would require some real math. And I am not. I'm a comic book writer. I'm not capable of math. Okay, it's just not happening.
There's a fix there.
Yeah. So,
gosh, let's talk math. It's got me tuckered out.
It's got me all. I'm tired. Podcast is over. I can't keep going. So the other problem, I'm still getting used to this whole visual thing. I like being able to see you while we talk. I feel like it's a little more personal. The problem I have with that is that now you and conversely the rest of the world get to see how much I drink while we're talking, and that like brings a whole new level of anxiety, perhaps, that doesn't need to be there.
You're gonna have to fill this out, Find me the amount of drinking on camera that works for you.
Right. There we go. Yeah. But anyway, so
you need like an image to slide in front of the camera.
It just put up like a little a hold image.
Right.
Yeah. So,
like the easy question. In retrospect, is number one still your favorite issue, or did it shift to the later stories?
So that's a fair question. I'm going to have to say that number one is still my favorite issue.
Okay.
I think it's a really strong first issue. I think that it does a fantastic job of setting up the crux of the series, like getting the ball rolling on all of the mythos. I think that it's a unique setup for superheroes also. I don't think that should be understated. The idea of it being like a school for mutants, like there have been kids superheroes before, and even of course Spider-Man came along before this, where he was a teenager. But in the Marvel style, I do think they kind of took it to that just like slightly next level where it's it's a school for kids, and I don't know if that's. I mean, like DC has done comics about teenagers with powers. Like that's not entirely new, But
sure.
I think the way Marvel did it was interesting, and the whole concept of it being mutants was interesting. It wasn't like the I can't even think of what they are called at DC. The
Teen Titans.
The Teen Titans actually came later. Like that was DC mimicking the X-Men. No, like the Legion of Superheroes or whatever. Just stuff like that. Or even like Superboy. They were doing Superboy in the 60s. Right, yeah. But
actually, the school aspect, even though it didn't come up all that often, when it did come up, I think those are some of the best scenes. Like, when you're seeing them training, you're meeting their families, you're seeing them go to the hipster coffee bar.
the coffee bar, yeah.
There was very little of that, but there was much more of that than in other comics at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I wish there was more because it's fun. It made them more human and more like these crazy kids going on adventures trying to figure things out.
No, I agree. It made it fun. But so back to the original question. I think that the first issue is still my favorite. Maybe if for no other reason than it's a good start and it's a single issue. I think that the Juggernaut issue is probably my favorite story. I shouldn't say issue. The Juggernaut issues, those 2 issues, was my favorite story out of the whole thing. I really liked I really like Juggernaut. Okay, I like the relationship of Professor X and Juggernaut. I like him as a villain. I actually think he's really strong, and it was done really well in those issues in a way that we haven't seen it done previous in those issues, like we talked about, of course. Like Juggernaut felt like a real threat of a villain to the X-Men in a way that Magneto never did. Never, ever did. It was amazing, actually. It was amazing how neutered Magneto felt in those old issues. Like just, and then the Juggernaut issues like come out of nowhere. So that just kind of made them all the more appealing in a way.
There's a real shift in and I think we already talked about this, so I won't.
Yeah, we don't have to harp on it.
The way the story was told was different than most of the other issues. An entire issue dedicated to building suspense where you weren't even seeing the villain. Yeah, it was just it was unique compared to all the other comics we read in this group. Yeah. So I think that's why that will always kind of be like a personal favorite for mine. Is that like a cop-out answer? Like technically I think issue 1 is the best issue, but I prefer the issues 12 and 13. I think it's fair. I like things that I think aren't necessarily as technically good sometimes, but I'm just saying it works for me. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Analogy here, but I'm not coming up with anything.
That's okay. It's okay, man. We just scoot on right past that. So I think I don't know if I actually have anything else to say about those issues. So this is going to probably be the final word on the subject, and then we're going to move on because we don't need to waste time. So yeah,
got it before, but
but that's true.
I like where we're going.
Yes, trying to keep things on track. I actually meant to have an egg timer that we could set and just be like, I can constantly look at it like paranoid, like maybe for the next episode.
Maybe something giant behind us that's like
yeah. So I guess final word. I enjoyed these issues maybe more than I thought I would. I read them before, and I remember really, really disliking it. I was pretty dismissive, I think, when we started.
Okay.
And like upon this reread and after this discussion with you, I actually think I enjoyed them maybe more than I thought I would or remembered enjoying them. Even the issues that we were not impressed by, I didn't like. I mean, there was the issues that we hated that were terrible. They were just awful. But there was like the Kazar issue, or even like the Unis issue, which was just kind of like blah. But I don't like looking back. I can almost find just like the kitschy appreciation of it being a 60s comic. Sure. And I can't really bring myself to say that it's like bad comics the way that some X-Men comics have been bad comics. Okay. And even looking at those issues, a lot of that Magneto stuff was terrible. And those Stranger issues were actually the worst. Like, they were so bad. I remember now why the issue 11, I think, got the half star, and it was for that awesome panel of like the cosmos and the three spirits.
Blasted across.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah,
it was like, that's some beautiful Kirby art.
Yeah,
that was it. That's the end of it.
That sounds right. I remember that.
Yeah. So I don't know, Alex. Any final thoughts on this?
I don't know. Would you tell other people? Would you say you guys should go out and read these? I mean, In the event that they listened to us talking about them, dedicated way more time to think about.
That's what I was about to say. Do you think it would be faster to listen to our 17 episodes? We didn't do 17 episodes. We condensed it, but
right.
Listen to our, what do we do here? We did like 14 episodes. Okay, now at an hour a piece.
Are you ready to dedicate hours?
Now, some of those were over, so let's be generous and say like you'd have to set aside 16 or 17 hours.
Yeah.
So like 17 hours. I think you could just read all the issues in that time.
I would say you having our audience, you're listening to this, you should go back and read the Sentinel issues, the Juggernaut issues, and issue number 1.
Yeah.
Call it a day. Take our word on the rest.
That's what I would say. I would say you could probably find some enjoyment in the issues 4 and 5. That was the first Brotherhood of Evil Mutants issues. Those came close. We gave those 3.5s. That's just shy. That's a half.
Right.
Half a score.
Those were pretty good.
Yeah. The problem, as we discussed, the problem really was that then they just kept doing it over and over again for several issues afterwards, and it didn't make sense that they kept bringing back Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and just having the same problems. So, the whole, like as we discussed, the whole Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. It's like, how many times do they have to second guess their allegiance to Magneto?
Right. This man's a violent psychopath. Stop it.
Right. But I would say, I would agree. Issue 1, issues 4 and 5, and then just skip on up to 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. That 5-issue run is really good. That's the Juggernaut Sentinels.
Yeah. Knock those out. Get a good feel for the old comics.
Yeah.
If you decide you really need to know for academic reasons how to read those comics, go for it.
But I don't think it's really necessary. I would say maybe it'd almost be interesting to read the Blob issue just to see how incompetent Professor X really could be.
It's a really strange, weird comic.
Yeah.
Really uncomfortable in retrospect.
Yeah. Okay. That's the end of that. I'm like,
that concludes our original X-Men.
So are you relieved to be done with the X-Men?
I'm excited to get back to reading more thorough graphic novels.
Me too. I do feel that's one thing that I sort of feel there's this weird sensation, and I can't quite describe it, that I've been kind of going through. And it really is, like, we've been doing this podcast, and it has started to feel like a slog. Even when we were in that segment of good issues that we enjoyed, like the Juggernaut and Sentinels. And it just felt like a slog because I felt like I wasn't actually reading anything anymore. I just like I've mentioned to you this before. I've mentioned this to you before about how things will go, like creative things for me, like reading or writing. It will turn from something that is fun to feeling like homework. And I am that type of creative person that the second it becomes homework, I can't do it. Like, I didn't get good grades in school, and it was because I didn't do my homework, right? So I have a problem, that's a personal problem, and I'm dealing with it. But it has left me feeling kind of anxious that I haven't really been reading as much as I should. Because let me tell you, I know you know this. Talking about bad comics isn't actually that fun.
No, it's not as. This is a long way from a Chris Ware discussion.
Right.
Or you're surprised, and you kind of work through it, and through our conversation, we learn things we weren't aware of.
Yeah, exactly.
A bigger understanding about life and art, and I don't know if these did that. So
right. So what I want to do here is, first, I have to mention what I think our next episode is going to be. I received a very nice package in the mail yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was this book right here. You recognize that?
Certain Battle Angel Alita.
Ah, Battle Angel. I don't recall ordering this, but I do remember there was some talk about you.
We really need to talk about Battle Angel.
Yeah, you were like, I want to talk about Battle Angel.
Yeah,
and it's a very nice collection. I had mentioned it. Oh, it's a new translation.
New translation, so that might be something worth digging into if you've got the originals around.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. So that'll be that'll be really cool. Also, I'm happy to see that the new one is the original Japanese reading from. Oops, a little paper fell out there. Yeah. The reading from right to left. Sorry, I'm looking at myself on camera while also trying to figure out directions.
My brain.
Yeah, exactly. Humans weren't meant to do this. Okay.
No worries.
And yes, the original who did it? Viz. The original Viz graphic novel mirrored the images so that you read it from left to right. So that might be part of the discussion, is the compare and contrast between the two books.
Yeah.
So
high octane, early cyberpunk.
Yeah.
This will be refreshing. I'm excited.
It'll be so nice to go there after this X-Men discussion. And you intimated to me before that your wife Taryn would be interested in talking about Battle Angel.
So, Taryn, would you be interested in joining a discussion?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she says most definitely.
Excellent. That'll be good. So I'm really looking forward to reading and talking about a book that I am excited about.
We have a history with this one too.
We do, and we're not going to get into it now. We'll talk about it a lot in the episode. We actually have a huge history with this book.
This comic's important, Daniel.
This comic is possibly one of the most like personally important books in both of our lives, right? I mean, I don't think I'm far off by saying that. It was the right comic
at an important time.
Exactly, in very formative years. And it was just I only have a handful of books that like fit into that time frame, and that's one of them. So that I think I'm pretty confident in saying that that's going to be the next episode that we do, because I just have to now. I mean, I got the book in front of me. I can't.
We've given this huge teaser. We do have some good stories.
We do, yeah.
Taryn's going to weigh in. And
that's good, because the only other episode that we had Taryn on was when we talked about Nausicaa, and I actually think that was one of the best, if not the best, discussions that we had on this podcast talking about comics.
I think it probably was.
I think.
Taryn's doing a big
I know that you have to say that, Alex, because she's in the room with you, but I do still believe that.
No, it was a really good talk. And
it was
a really amazing comic, and Taryn might be our resident manga expert. So
she might be. So I have here a stack of about 20 other books, and I'm going to show them to you, and I just want you to give me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested you are in doing an episode on these books.
Okay.
They're books you might not necessarily have, but we'll
work something out.
We'll work something out. Okay, so the first book I have is The Inkall by Jordowski and Mobius.
I would love to read that. The only issue there is we haven't done any Mobius yet.
We haven't.
Wonder what Mobius would be the best to start with.
That's a tough call. I don't know if there is an answer to, like, where do you begin with Mobius, other than you just kind of get thrown into it.
Okay. Well, I would definitely put that high on the list. Put that in.
Give me a number.
All right, I'm going to put it as an 8.
An 8. That's a good number. Okay, number 8.
We're going all the way to 10. I got a big spectrum to work.
That's right. Yeah, you got a big spectrum. Okay. So the next book I have is Patience by Dan Clowes.
Okay.
How interested in that book are you?
I've been wanting to read that one. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm going to put that as a 7.
Okay.
I want to read Mobius more.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. The next one is one that I know that you have, but I don't know if you've read it recently. And that would be Casanova by Matt Fraction and Gabriel Bod.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read that one.
Yeah, I kind of might want to revisit that one, maybe.
It's a funky, cool comic.
Yeah. Where does that fit number-wise? Math.
Put numbers on it.
We need math. I'm
gonna put that one as a 6.
Okay, 6. So we're just steadily counting down here.
Yeah, but we're still like above 5, so I'm still like.
Yeah, still interested. Okay, another one that's sort of relevant. Just had a recent TV adaptation. Happy by Grant Morrison and Derek Robinson.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put that one lower on my list.
Sure.
I'm curious about it, but I'm gonna put it at like a 4.
4. Okay.
Only because we haven't talked about any Morrison yet.
We haven't, and that's something that's
you want to start with.
That's kind of something that's come up. Since I started putting this podcast on YouTube like a year ago, I've gotten like 4 comments, I think, and I'm actually surprised that I got 4 comments. That's incredible. And one of them, or at least the most recent one, if not, there might have been another one, but the most recent one was asking why I haven't talked about any Grant Morrison comics. Because I do.
Hell, I don't know.
I don't. And the thing is I don't know. I looked back and I'm like, God dang, we've done like 70 episodes and we haven't talked about a single Grant Morrison comic. I've talked about several Alan Moore comics.
Yeah.
But no Grant Morrison.
I mean.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of editorializing too much. Probably start with Alan Moore.
Yeah. Okay, so
I enjoy both writers.
So Grant Morrison's Happy. That's at like a 4. Well, maybe this one would be a little higher. Grant Morrison's Marvel Boy.
Ooh.
Haven't been a while since you read that one, huh?
I really like that comic.
Yeah.
I'll put that one up at a 7 or an 8. 7.
7.
I think Mobius is still going to be really high on my list.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, next is Grant Morrison's Animal Man.
Oh man, I've never read that. I hear many things. For my comic literacy, I should probably read that. I'm going to put it at a 5.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, next is Grant Morrison's The Invisibles. We're on a whole Grant Morrison streak here, by the way, if you didn't figure this out.
Yeah. So The Invisibles is pretty long, though, right?
It's. I think it might only be like 6 trade paperbacks, but it feels longer. Let me tell you. That's all I can say now. That's all I can comment now. I've only read the whole series once.
Gotcha. I'm going to put that behind Marvel Boy and Mobius, but I would like to read The Invisibles.
Fair enough. Okay, next is Grant Morrison's We 3.
That's like one of my favorite comics.
And it's a simple one because it's only 3 issues.
Right. I would put that at an 8 or a 9. I would love to talk about We 3, and I don't think it would be a long talk.
I agree. That one would be a simple episode that we could just like bang out, you know.
Say how much we love it. Focus on a bunch of panels. We can show camera setup.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So next, the opposite of We 3, Grant Morrison's New X-Men.
Aaron.
That was a joke. I know. We're not going anywhere near the X-Men after this last year.
That is an inevitable conversation, but we're not ready.
No, we're definitely not. Okay, next. Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman.
Okay. You're throwing so much Morrison out here.
I told you it's a whole Morrison streak.
I've
got a lot of Morrison built up that I haven't talked about in years.
Yeah. I'm going to put that one at a 7.
Okay. Next, Grant Morrison's 7 Soldiers.
Ooh, that's a weird one that I have a soft spot for.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Damn it, man. We just you're throwing too much Morrison here, and I have to think about and prioritize all of Morrison's work.
I know, right?
I think you just hit all of the like major ones.
Actually, not pictured here because I really didn't have time to go through everything, but not pictured here. Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol,
Okay.
and Grant Morrison's Sea Guy.
Sea Guy, yeah.
Those would be the other two that would be on my list of potential Morrisons, but I don't, nothing to show right now.
I'd love to talk about Seven Soldiers, but maybe that's one that's down the line because I feel like it's pretty much it's going into dense Morrison continuity world.
Oh yeah.
Start with some of his more broader, approachable stuff.
Yes.
Just for a hierarchy of conversations.
Yeah, fair enough. But still, you didn't give me a number. Seven Soldiers.
I'm gonna put it at a 6.
Okay, fair enough. I need to, when I go back and I got to tally up the numbers, and that's mathematically it's the only way I can figure out what we're gonna work on next.
All right. Well, you haven't shown me any crap yet, so you can pick anything. And we can probably
fair enough. Okay. So the next potential book. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure I pronounce this correctly. I'm just going to go with the last name. Otomo's.
Okay.
Akira.
That's I'd like to talk about that one. Are we going to talk about the whole thing? That's like 5 phone books.
Right? I know. I don't.
I'd love to talk about Akira. I'm going to put that down the list, though. I'm going to put that at like a 4.
I totally feel you. I don't know if that's one we're ready for.
Taryn, would you join us on Akira? Taryn says, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah. Well, then that automatically bumps it up. If we get Taryn on, well, that's good. I have one more manga here. Masamune Shiro's Ghost in the Shell.
Ooh. So true story. I've never actually read that.
Well, if you've seen the original movie, it's actually pretty close to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I kind of like the comic more.
Yeah. I'd love to read that one. I'll give that one a 7.
Good.
Because Cyberpunk's going to win me over.
Awesome. Totally, yeah. So another manga, but not real manga, but I know it has a special place in your heart, maybe. Shark Knife by Corey Lewis.
That's a fun one.
Right?
That one, yeah. That is a fun, silly comic.
Yeah.
I would put that. You're making me use numbers. I'll put that at a 4. I'm going to put that one down the list.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Corey. Yeah.
It's cool.
Okay. So then next we have Ultimate Power, the awesome Ultimate Universe crossover written by Brian Michael Bendis and J. Michael Straczynski and Jeff Loeb with art by the sensational Greg Land. I know you like the Ultimate Universe comics, Alex.
I know you put a bunch of names in a hat of comics that I maybe haven't always said the nicest things about. When you found as many of those creators on one book as you
it's so beautiful in that respect, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to sound, I'm a comic book creator myself, kind of, asterisk, not really. So I have to be professional about this. So, they're all consummate professionals.
They are. And I do like the Ultimate Universe.
I know. I do too.
That's a weird animal of a comic. It's like universes with universes. And, I'll say those creators have all 75% of those creators have put out work that I have at one point or another really liked. But I don't think I want to read Ultimate Power right now.
Perfectly fine. Next, I have Earthboy Jacobus by Doug TenNapel.
Yeah. You guys, did we talk about Creature Tech, or did you?
I did an episode about Creature Tech a few years back now with my friends Ed Bickford and Gabe.
Yes, gotcha.
Gabe Dunstan. It was actually before Ed and I started doing Birdlander, I think. We did that podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, real early. Or maybe when we were kind of talking about doing it, but yeah, because now that Ed draws comics, he doesn't have time for podcasts. I won't let him. He's
a workhorse.
He's got deadlines.
Taking names.
Yeah, I don't let him do podcasts anymore.
I would enjoy talking about Earthboy Jacobus. I think that's an interesting one.
I do too.
6.
6. Fair enough. Okay, next, Copra by Michael Fife. Fife?
I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I'm going with Fife because I like saying Fife.
Yeah, it does sound.
I believe you sent me this book.
I think I did, yeah.
You did. And to my everlasting shame, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
I have thumbed through it a lot, though, saying, I really need to read this.
I think he is a unique voice in current comics. An interesting conversation. I don't want to read it as much as I want to read some of the other books you've shown, so we'll put
Mobius.
Yeah,
that's perfectly reasonable.
Mobius, We Three, Battle Angel.
Yes.
So that's a 5 or a 6, I guess.
Next, I have Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassidy. That one's been on the list for a long time.
Yeah. That's like my favorite comic, Aaron.
Right?
So that's like a 9.
Okay, this just beat Mobius.
Yeah.
It was like we just found episode 2 of the new series.
This is hard though.
Because I know you want to read Mobius.
I do.
Because you haven't read it yet, and you've read Planetary.
And it feels bad throwing these numbers out as if I'm qualified. Like, it's not the quality of the book, it's the order we should read them in.
Exactly, yeah.
This is dirty numbers.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next, Batman Year 100 by Paul Pope.
That's a super cool comic. That's an easy one to talk about, too.
It is. It's really easy.
Planetary is 28 issues.
Right, exactly. That is something that does factor into the whole, like, how we do it, because this is the kind of book you can just read and bang out one episode.
I'd put that at like a 7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favorite comics as well.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. Okay.
It's real cool.
So, final book. Lost Girls by Alan Moore.
Danger Zone. I've never read Lost Girls. It's not high on my list, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It's subject matter that's like, oh, that's cool that he did that, but it's not really my thing.
Right. So the ultimate question is this above or below Ultimate Power?
Well, it's Alan Moore, so it's above Ultimate Power, but I'd rather read all the other stuff.
Yeah. Totally fair enough. Okay. Well, that's a good starter. I actually have a few other books that I wanted to talk to you about, or do potential episodes, but I can't find them at the moment. I have a bad habit of lending books to people or family and then losing track of where they go.
That's a thing that happens.
Yeah. And I'm the worst at it. And what makes it even worse is that I'm also the most disorganized person in the world. Like my bookshelf, so when I started, my bookshelf is actually pretty simple. It's like alphabetical order, except for this shelf, which is all the like more auteur stuff, and then this shelf is like the Alan Moore stuff, and this stuff is Grant Moore. I got them pretty segmented. But then you go to my long boxes. And it's I sort of feel a little bit like John Cusack in High Fidelity, because I go through my long boxes and I'm like, how the heck did I have this organized? That's right, this long box was favorites, and I'm going through and like, what the hell? When was this my favorite? Like, good Lord, And so it's
chasing the current state of your taste.
Exactly, yeah. It's So it's not quite as easy to pick through. And then, of course, there are the 3 or 4 boxes, which are not long boxes. They're just boxes that just have comics piled into them because I never got around to buying more long boxes because I am a slob. And I kind of hate taking care of comic books. That's a personal problem.
Entirely believe that, but you prioritize the ones that are important versus the ones that are less important. And they end up on
Yes.
So.
Well, I think we have a pretty good list of books that we're going to talk about in the future, and I'm sure that there will be several that will pop up that weren't even mentioned here that we may talk about. We're definitely going to talk about Battle Angel Alita the next episode. I can't say for sure when that's going to be. I'm not going to promise that it's going to be next week. Anybody that's looked at this has seen that we update once or twice a month, and I would love to update more, but schedule is schedule, and we'll try to do it as often as we can. But I think it is my hope that getting back into reading and talking about books that we want to read and talk about will maybe encourage us to be a little more open with our scheduling.
A little more excited and on task. We'll get time for it as opposed to, oh yeah, I gotta read those X-Men.
I'll get around to it. I could do that, or I could clean the bathroom, and that really needs to get done. Like, I can't put it off.
There you go. Hard decisions. Or not hard when it's the X-Men. I mean, when it's bad issues.
Right. When it's the Stranger.
Yes.
Ugh. Okay.
We mentioned that was bad comic.
I think a few times. That's like forever going to be my go-to awful comic book. Like just awful. I'm just mad that we never got to see Magneto's Magna Car. Like, that's really just, how are you going to drop that? Oh, it's Magna Car. The fuck?
That was a little disappointing.
Yeah. But we already said our final word on that. We're not going back.
All right, we're done.
Okay.
Onward to better things.
Yes, and that's I believe that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this podcast. I'm starting to feel a little hot and sweaty in this suit. It was not a good idea. In the future episodes, I will be dressing more casual. I can promise you that.
Or just grab a fan or something. I don't know.
I have a fan on me right now.
All right.
It's not up to snuff.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you everybody for listening and watching, because now we can say that. I'm still going to make this podcast available as MP3s at comicdna.podbean.com. And, of course, you can find comic books that I write at gocomics.com. Right now, you can find my book, American Chop Suey, with artist Ed Bickford. It's at gocomics.com. And also, The Uncontrollable Reclass is at tapas.com, or .io, sorry. I'll put links in the description. Easier than saying it all out. And, that about covers it. I don't know, like, share, blah, 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 blah. You know how people end these things.
Yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. All right, Alex, thanks for sitting down and reading. First of all, thanks for reading all of those X-Men comics over the last period of our lives.
Thanks for having me. It was.
Yes.
I'm glad we did it. I'm excited about moving on to other things.
Me too, yeah. And thanks for agreeing to do that, by the way. I guess I should clarify. I still intend to do episodes with as many other friends and comic creator guests as I can, but it is very difficult to wrangle schedules. And maybe it's not very difficult, but it's not the easiest thing in the world, and therefore I don't like doing it. So it can be a challenge to find like new guests all the time. So I'm glad that you've been suckered into regularly reading comic books and talking to me about them.
As we pointed out more than once, we'd be doing it anyway. So we like comics. And
that's right. Yes. It's just the way it is. All right. Well, that's about the end of it. Of course, I guess if I can't end this without saying a big heartfelt thank you to your wife for putting up with you doing this podcast and talking about stupid X-Men comics for the last year and a half.
Supportive.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
There we go.
She is the unsung hero of this whole podcast.
Shut up.
She says, "Aw, shucks."
I'm looking forward to the next episode, though. It's going to be a
be
bold new beginning for this podcast.
There we go.
All right, that's the end of it. Thanks, everybody. Good night.